once again going to look at the Green Goblin. And this is the original, final chapter for the original Green Goblin. Yes, I know they retconned it by saying he survived. And, of course, with the Goblin formula and all that. Okay, whatever. But this was it for decades. The original story came out in 1973. But here is how I saw it in the 80s in a collection of Marvel Tales. And this was the cover of 2 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man that told the end of the Green Goblin and the end of the love of his life, Gwen Stacy. So there we go. And I remember buying it at the drugstore. And with my own little money, a little dog. Well, I was a big boy, but nevertheless, I purchased it. And I guess because it said the epic that stunned the world, and the lady at the checkout glanced at it and then rolled her eyes. It's like, hey, mind your own business, lady. Well, whatever. So it picks up in here, and this is when Jerry Conway took over. Stan Lee wasn't writing it anymore. And Harry Osborn still dealing with drug use and all that sort of thing. So, of course, that's the problem. But that also lays the groundwork for Green Goblin number 2, in case you didn't figure that one out. It's Harry. He becomes the next Green Goblin. So anyway, Peter's all worried and stuff. And, oh, man, I got to check on Peter. And here comes Norman Osborn. Get away from my son. So, oh, man, what's the deal? And so due to Harry's problems, Norman's starting to lose it. And whenever he does, he might remember his alter ego. So the status that had been established once Norman Osborn revealed that he was the Green Goblin and all that stuff, and then got injured and developed convenient amnesia. It's a different kind of amnesia. Where he becomes just, businessman Norman Osborn, and he forgot all about Peter Parker being Spider-Man. But when stress and everything gets too tough for him, oh boy, so Peter's worried, oh no, is he going to remember he's Green Goblin? Oh, because he's really starting to look like him in there, And so meanwhile, oh boy, there's problems with the business and everything. Sweat. And then Harry Osborn, of course, is sick from his drug problems. And he's like, Harry, you should be in bed. And then he collapses. And it's just all the more stress for Norman here. And he really starts to crack up. And he starts seeing visions of Spider-Man. And he's just, even though he's like, well, how does Spider-Man fit into your business problems and your son and all that? Well, it doesn't really matter. Of course, don't recall maybe previous issues adds to that. But nevertheless, he's really starting to crack under the pressure. And then it all just explodes at once. He darts out, like a haunted man. And of course, he is haunted by his own demons that he created, albeit accidentally, but nevertheless. And then, oh boy, one of his old secret hideouts. And he goes to it and he's like, I can't believe I forgot. Well, he had a head injury. Of course, a head injury is what started the whole thing anyway. So there he goes. He finds the secret hideaway and all that. And then he puts on his Green Goblin suit. Yeah. See, how do you relieve stress? I know. I put on a Green Goblin suit. So now he's really mad because he's like, Spider-Man is the reason I forgot who I really am. So I'm going to teach him a lesson. So off he goes on his little back glider. But at Peter Parker's apartment, it's not Peter Parker, it's Gwen Stacy. So, well, yeah, this is not going to go well, is it now? So here we are at the top of the bridge, and Goblin saying, hey, you surrender, and she'll live, or whatever, and they get in their fight, and Spider-Man's particularly mad because he kidnapped his girlfriend, And he's really, that's a great scene there. Gives him quite the wallop. See, it turned the purple to red. Boy, that was a hard punch. And but unfortunately, not good enough. The Goblin knocks Gwen off the top of the bridge there. She's going down. He's like, oh my God, no. So he, Spider-Man hits her with the web to stop her fall. But interestingly enough, now this is still the Goblin's fault. He intended to kill her. Spider-Man's trying to save her. But the sudden stop seems to have broken her neck. Unfortunately, this puts Spider-Man in the position of, holy crap, I just broke my girlfriend's neck and she died, and that just adds to the whole trauma of it all. And then there's the sad discovery. He realizes, no, I didn't save her. She's dead. And then, here's the Goblin laughing at him about it and everything. And it's like, oh boy. Yeah, he's ready to kill now, and so that was the end of the first issue, something I can't think of, obviously origin stories, Uncle Ben, and Batman's parents and stuff like that. But to have a regular cast member of a superhero title get killed off like that, and especially one that is pretty much, after this, they were on the verge of getting married, and to do that. But maybe that was the thing here. I mean, look, they're only cartoon characters, so it's like maybe the editors decided to kill two birds with one stone. So basically, you kill off the girlfriend who's about to be his wife because, hey, we can't have our superheroes getting settled down. So sorry, Gwen. And then, of course, in the next issue, oh boy, the battle is on. Spider-Man wants revenge. He's beating the crap out of the Goblin, and the Goblin is really like, oh man, I think I screwed up here. Well, yeah. But Spider-Man can't think straight so bad that he doesn't see this piping coming up, and he hits it and knocks him off. But he's going to get revenge. So, meanwhile, back at the secret hideout, there's the final scene of Norman Osborn until, they retcon it decades later. But nevertheless, that's pretty, still sweating and all messed up. The mask hides a lot. And he knows Peter Parker's on the way. The rest of the issue was Peter Parker enraged, looking for leads on Norman Osborn and all this. Damn near giving up who he really is. Gets in an argument with, J. Jonah Jameson, and then poor sick Harry, and all that. But he's in no mood to deal with any of it. So they have this massive battle, and he nearly kills the Goblin just with his fist alone. Just pounding and pounding and pounding him. And then he backs off at the last minute. And he goes, I can't be a murderer, so I'm going to take him to jail. But the Goblin still has his back ladder, which Spider-Man had broken down, but it left the little bat ears into a poker. So the Goblin can control it with, supposedly in his costume, there's all these cybernetic elements in it. So with his mind, I think he can, he's linked to it and can operate it or what have you. Sends it to stab Spider-Man in the back, but whoops, still got his spider sense, moves at the last minute, and and so there he goes. So do the proud men die, crucified not on a cross of gold, but on a stake of humble tin. I think it's a little more than 10. I mean, if that's just 10, then okay, maybe he really wasn't dead. It's kind of a little too small, too. I mean, the Spider-Man jumped on it, so maybe parts of it broke off, but he needs a little bit bigger to hold this guy. But anyway, that was it. That's the death of the Green Goblin. Now, the Green Goblin, in a lot of ways, was the main and arch nemesis of Spider-Man. There was a personal relationship between the two, and just the quandary that it put Spider-Man in, of at one point protecting him, to his detriment, of course, but all for the sake of his best friend Harry, stuff like that. So they, they had that playthrough. But for all the Spider-Man villains, and he's got a lot of great ones, really Green Goblin was the main deal, and then they kill him off. Well, the situation of the forgetting who he is and having the dual personality and stuff, I suppose they could have continued on where Osborn realizes he's got this dual identity but doesn't quite remember everything. Or he does remember everything, but he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to hurt Peter. He doesn't want to, and all stuff like that they could have done, but the Goblin persona takes over at times. But eventually, I guess they thought it gets tired, and look, anyone can wear the suit. And that's what they decided to do. So they killed him off. And yet Norman Osborn continues to haunt Peter after this, and I mean, considering what he's done, he's had more impact on Spider-Man than other villains. The only one that comes close or on par with Goblin would be Dr. Octopus. And other villains have, since have done, great damage to Spider-Man and so on and so forth. But I mean, the Jackal story comes along as well, and that whole thing, but with, Gwen Stacy clones and all that. Gwen Stacy, of course, has never been brought back from the dead, but there's been a lot of other Gwen Stacys, and then into the multiverse nonsense of Ghost Spider and Gwenpool. So anyway, but this for all intents and purposes, this was it. Even when they eventually resurrect Norman Osborn, I've always thought he becomes more of a Lex Luthor personality-wise than he was in this messed up man, all through brain damage, basically. He stole Mendel Strom's formula. It exploded in his face. It gave him the super strength of his goblin powers, and but it totally left him deranged. So it ends on this note where another curious thing about it with the death of Gwen Stacy, it's like Mary Jane was always second best. And so she stays with him in his depression and mourning and all of that, which another Gwen Stacy will always haunt Peter after this. And ultimately, of course, they get married, and but then that gets retconned and thrown away too. So nothing really matters, but it's a series, so you got to do reboots and all that. I understand. But that's one of the things that it's really, as far as I know, the main thing that it was addressed was in Earth X, where they talk about it, where Peter, he loved Mary Jane, but Gwen was the one, And that's sad. Since then, it's always been, it was always going to be Mary Jane in the movies and everything, but in the comics, well, that's not quite how it happened. But there you go. So obviously, in this final battle, if you will, the Goblin really left quite the stamp on the Spider-Man story, and there was really no undoing it other than, cheap retcons and stuff like that, of course. But so there you go. That's where the original Goblin story ends, with the setup for it to continue with Harry Osborn succeeding dear old dad, and as a result of that, it leads to the third Green Goblin, and then we get to the Hobgoblin, which I'll get to. As I'm not going to stop doing this here. We'll continue on with other goblins for these goblin specials. Isn't that nice? So so next time we'll deal with Harry, who was destined to be a son of a goblin.